Hey, it's Mazzy here, and this is the 2022. Sorry. I don't know why I'm laughing. I'm not editing this out. This is the 2022 Jazz Vinyl Tag, created by Chris from Tunes from the Man Cave. He created it last year as well. Now, if you don't know what a vinyl tag is, somebody comes up with questions. Usually there's a general one every year in the vinyl community on these YouTube channels, and a lot of us who are interested participate and answer about 20 questions. 22 questions here, and I will answer them with showcasing some jazz albums from my collection. There's a link below to Chris's channel, and in the description are all the questions. So if you want to participate in this or think about it, answer these questions. So here we go, and thanks for putting this together. I'm all in on jazz. I have been since I was about 17, 18. I really kind of got into it, and then even, more so when I was roommates with Jazz Shit Brooks. And if you haven't seen those videos, look in the playlist. In the jazz section, there's some collaborations with my very first college roommate. So, first question is, your favorite jazz find of 2021, and I've showcased this, and this is the double 45 Riverside Complete collection of Bill Evans. Now, an interesting story, and I told it before, this is going to be repressed, but they've jacked up the price, everything's more expensive. It's double 45. In a perfect world, I would rather have these all 33 LPs. Not that I'm lazy, and I know 45s give you that little extra oomph and extra dynamic range and everything, but I just want to play the friggin' record. But they're going to repress this. I think originally it was like $550 to $600 when it came out. 11 records, double 45, so it's 22 LPs, I believe. And it's everything Bill Evans did on Prestige Records. And I got this because my friend and maybe a fan favorite, Coffee Dave, who's been on my video, had a sealed copy of this. He bought something like 6, 7, 8 years ago. It was sitting in he has records everywhere. It's not as organized as I am, but he has got a fantastic collection. He never opened this. And you know how I am. I hate when people buy things. And he said, I just really forgot. I kind of got it on a whim. I'm not really into Bill Evans as much. So I said, I will trade you for it. And we get a real good deal, fair for both of us. And it's been on my turntable quite a bit in the last several months. This last year I got it. But this will be back in print, Analog Productions, but it's pricey. But for the quality and the amount of records, is it worth it? That's up to you. But it's really amazing. So I'm not going to go through every record, but if you know Bill Evans' catalog, you know it. Your favorite reissue released in 2021. I mean, there's so many with the Tone Poets and the Prestige and all these archival releases. And I decided to go with an archival release, which is not the best recorded record, but it really struck a note, it hit the right tone for me. And this is a Love Supreme in Seattle, live in Seattle. I think it's only one of 2 recordings, as I understand that we have of Coltrane performing Love Supreme live. And this is at the Penthouse in Seattle, long gone jazz club before I lived here. That's the front door of the Penthouse. And this is recorded in, was it 1965 in Seattle, Washington. And it's not, again, it's an archival recording, so it's not going to be this beautiful oral sensation, but it's a friggin' great performance. And I just love this. Love Supreme in Seattle, and that's my favorite reissue of 2021. Okay, now, your favorite new jazz release in 2021. I am pushing it back a little bit because this came out originally in 2020. But with the pandemic and things and overlapping, it was like a blur, right? 2020 and 2021 are basically the same year, kind of a messed up year. I have 2 records by this young artist on Blue Note Records. This is Joel Ross, Vibraphonist, and this is a really interesting record, really good record. There are some remnants of Coltrane style. He plays with alto saxophone, Emmanuel Wilkins on it, and I just really like this. This is the second album I have of his. This is called Who Are You? And it's really, really good. So it came out in 2020. but I really got into it in 2021. So Blue Note record, Joel Ross. A saxophone lead jazz section. Well, I'm all in. My favorite saxophone player is Charlie Parker. I could have picked so many titles. And this is funny. This is Machito, supervised by Norman Granz. Norman Granz obviously was the founder of Verve Records. Later in the 70s would go on to start Pablo Records. He managed Ella Fitzgerald. That's why he started Verve Records. And Charlie Parker's featured on here. And this is Afro Cuban jazz. I really like this style of music, and I don't see it featured a lot on videos in the vinyl community or even beyond. That whole Dizzy Gillespie sound and the Cuban musician fusion that was happening in the late 40s, mostly into the 50s, and I really love this. And this has sort of Charlie Parker with strings, a string, small ensemble, April in Paris, Easy to Love, and it also has Charlie Parker with Hank Jones and Ray Brown and Buddy Rich from 1950, and then with Machito and his orchestra, the whole Cuban with Chico Farrell. Love this stuff. Love this type of jazz. Doesn't get enough love here, but I mean, Charlie Parker to me is the greatest jazz musician ever who walked this planet Earth. So there you go, Charlie Parker. A trumpet lead jazz session. And one of my favorites, obviously, everyone's going to say, not everyone's going to say, but Miles Davis is the obvious choice, but Clifford Brown's got this beautiful, smooth sound. And this is Clifford Brown and drummer Max Roach. And this is was on MRC label. And this was recorded in 1955. And this is just a gorgeous version of this. This is, I believe, an analog production. Oh, this is actually Verve, analog production, acoustic sounds, Universal, all that combination of these beautiful records with that lovely gatefold there. But I love Clifford Brown, and this is really a gorgeous record, a fine jazz record. Okay, a guitar lead. There's so many great guitar players, and I mean, you can go with the Grant Greens and the Wes Montgomerys that some people like. Probably my favorite I almost picked was Django Reinhardt, a little out of the box that people are showing lately. But I think this is a really cool record. This is John Mclaughlin, and this is really before he started Mahavishnu Orchestra. This was on, this is Columbia, I believe, an offshoot of Columbia, Douglas Communications, actually. But it was distributed by Columbia, as I recall, I think. Anyway, acoustic-based, and it's very Kumbaya-esque, massage-like, and just a wonderful, wonderful. This is, I think, the first album under the name Mahavishnu, John Mclaughlin, and this was my first entry before he got into the more electric, louder fusion of the Mahavishnu Orchestra. But I think this is a record that everyone should get into. It's a gorgeous record, beautifully recorded. And this is, I'm thinking this is 71, 72, give or take. I could be wrong. But Douglas number 9, My Goals Beyond is the title of the album. It's and it's really something that you should seek out if my description sparks an interest with you. Okay, a piano lead jazz session, piano lead now. Now from that box, I pull this out. Now, a lot of people don't love the first album, even Orrin Keepnews, who kind of signed him to Riverside and produced his albums, or most of his early albums. Didn't love this as much. This is kind of a younger, Bill Evans. It's called New Jazz Conceptions, but I just love the sound of this record. So I could, I opened up with that Bill Evans box. This is from that box, but I also have an original of this record, and it's just a wonderful Bill Evans record. So, and it's a good entry into the work of Bill Evans. Not his most famous, but a fantastic, fantastic record. Okay, an organ lead jazz. And I'm a fan of organ. I know some people, organ tends to have this love-hate relationship. Some people see it as cocktail, smooth. Obviously, Jimmy Smith is one of the most famous jazz organist, and Lonnie Liston Smith. And I decided to pick Shirley Scott. Shirley Scott, It's great to have like a woman in this genre of jazz and in this instrument. She was married to Stanley Turrentine, and this is a Stanley Turrentine, Shirley Scott collaboration called Blue Flames, and this was on Prestige. This is an OJC original jazz classic combo release, and it's with Bob Crenshaw on bass and Otis Finch on drums, and it's really a wonderful, it's a really good album. Okay, a trombone or tuba lead session. This is my favorite by far of this instrument, and this is Gratian Moncoeur III. And what's wonderful at this almost seems like a neoclassical album. There's a lot going on here. It's a larger group because it's got Lee Morgan on trumpet, Jackie McLean on alto sax, Bobby Hutcherson vibes, Bob Crenshaw on bass, and Tony Williams on drums. And this is double 45 Music Matters jazz version. Love this cover, but this is such a beautiful record. It's rich, a lot of different tones and sounds. It's not your typical, trio or quartet. It's a larger ensemble, and it's something it's really a special record. And you got to see a trombone close up like that, right? Your favorite jazz funk record? I'm gonna show Throbbing Gristle, 20 jazz funk greats. I'm sorry? Oh, the judges say I can't show this, doesn't count as a jazz funk record. Okay, instead, I'm gonna show Miles Davis on the Corner. Out there, when I first heard this record when it came out in the 70s, I didn't quite get it, and now it's one of my favorites. And I really like, I collect the metal spine, they called them. They're not all metal, but the expanded CDs of Miles Davis and the on the Corner sessions. Just so much great funk and stuff going on here. Love this sort of animation cover. This is so amazing. A jazz fusion record. I picked Weather Report. I think they're the most famous of the jazz fusion bands. Of course, Mahavishnu Orchestra, you could pick Bitches Brew. And I went with their most commercial record because it's commercial, but I still love it. And that is Heavy Weather by Weather Report. Of course, it has the amazing Joe Zawinul composed song called Birdland that opens up. That was a huge, got a lot of radio play, crossed over into some FM rock stations at the time. Jaco Pastorius on bass, Wayne Shorter, of course, a member. It's just a really good record. And that song, it's just, it's like, it was somewhat of a hit single, I think, and it was commercial. It got a lot of people into it. Of course, look at this great fedora on the cover. I mean, how can you not like a great fedora on a cover of a record like that? That is thunderous. That is heroic. Illustration, photo, montage, as they say. I love this record, and it is very commercial. It's got the synthesizers and that fusion. Wayne Shorter, of course, one of the great composers in jazz, all over it as well. The song Birdland, though, there is another version Manhattan Transfer did, a vocal version that John Hendricks wrote from Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross lyrics to it, and that's kind of a fun version too. So, okay. The next question is an underappreciated album by an artist you love. Now, this is really appreciated, but I think as I watch these videos, whether it's the vinyl community, I don't see a lot of loving going on for Nat Cole. And you know me, I'm not into the box set, especially this kind of box set, but Analog Productions did put this out. I think Steve Hoffman and Kevin Gray worked on it, and this is the Nat King Cole story. Now, to me, a box set works when it's multi-records, and this is 3 records, 45 RPM, an amazing sounding record. The Nat Cole Trio, it comes with a book. I don't think this is in print at the moment, but it is a wonderful remastered audiophile collection. I'm all in on Nat Cole. I love him. I think he's he's that sweet spot of jazz and pop and just great piano playing and just great vocals. So to me, this is underappreciated. Obviously, these sell out every time they repress them, but it's a highly recommended audiophile record, Nat Cole, the Nat King Cole story. This is when a box set works. Now for one record. Okay, a live album. So many to choose from. In fact, obviously there's some I'm including in other categories here, but I decided to go to San Francisco. The Jazz Workshop was a jazz club, along with the Black Hawk in San Francisco, later years, the Keystone Corner. I was too young to attend the Jazz Workshop, and this is a fantastic album with Cannonball Adderley Quintet, with obviously Julian Cannonball Adderley and Nat Adderley's brother, Bobby Timmons on piano, Sam Jones on bass, and Louis Haynes on drums. And this is recorded in 1959, San Francisco. Fantastic live jazz record. A supergroup album. Some would say Weather Report's a supergroup. This is sort of a one-off, but they did a tour, and this is one that I attended in the 70s. The album came out in 1977, and this is Vsop, the Quintet. The famous second Miles Davis Quintet. Instead of Miles, they have Freddie Hubbard sitting in on trumpet. Of course, the great quintet is Ron Carter on bass, Herbie Hancock on piano, Tony Williams on drums, and Wayne Shorter on the saxophone. I saw this at the Greek Theater in Berkeley, but that's what I consider definitely a supergroup. One of the most important, one of many, a handful of important groups in jazz, and of course, the second great quintet for Miles Davis. A record by your favorite artist as a sideman. I mean, I have too many favorites, and the sideman I'm going to say is Miles Davis, but I also love Cannonball Adderley. And to me, this is one of the best jazz albums ever made. And I give this a nod over Kind of Blue I think it's the best jazz album. Now, you could quibble, you like this or that different, but accessibility. Some say this was a Miles Davis-led session, but because of contractual obligations and situations, it couldn't be billed as that. But he is the session. But of course, Hank Jones, Sam Jones, Art Blakey. So you could take any of these people who are on these. You know, a lot of these jazz artists showed up on different albums of each other's albums. So it's kind of a loose. You could do so many different directions of answers on that. Okay, a album more people should know about. Teddy used to be in the vinyl community, who really, one of the early adopters or early videographers, video makers, turned me on, I think in 2018. This is one of his #1 album of the year, and it's fantastic. And this is Myra Melford's Snowy Egret, and the album is called The Other Side of Air. And she's this piano player, lives in Berkeley, also teaches. And this is a really good record because it's very accessible, but a little challenging at times, but gorgeous. Jazz, a little neoclassical thrown in. It's just this cornet, guitar, bass guitar, drums, and piano. And I just love this record. Every time I put it on, it just feels good. It sounds great. It's a double album. I think you could probably get it through Bandcamp if it's still available on vinyl. I'm not quite sure. I think more people should know this record because it's unusual, but it's very beautiful. An album by an artist that should have been bigger. There's so many jazz artists that should have been bigger. And of course, in the jazz world, people know this artist, but in the civilian world, he's someone that people are just starting to get to know because of the Tone Poets. And this is Andrew Hill. What a great piano player. And this record is also beautiful. It's almost got that, it's an unusual piano style he has here. Joe Henderson on tenor sax, Richard Davis on bass, and Roy Haynes on drums. Again, a tone poet with the obligatory Francis Wolff photographs on the inset. I just love the cover. I love the music. I think more people should dip their toes, and I think there's 2 tone poets, this one and Passing Ships. I think only the 2 so far on Blue Note Tone Poets that are from Andrew Hill, and I highly recommend them both. This is a really lovely, lovely record. One of my favorites of all the Tone Poets, in my top 5 probably. A vocal jazz album. I like jazz vocals. I mean, I show a lot of Lambert Hendrickson Ross. I show Bob Dorough, who he's the one that sings with Miles Davis on that Christmas song, Merry Christmas. But I'm going someone who also has that kind of jive, like beat poetry type of singing. And I love this guy and I love this record. He's a great piano player too, and it's not Chet Baker, it's Mose Allison. This was his first record in Prestige, I believe. Find this record if you can. I think you can find it cheap. I have I found a copy of it. Is this the mono? This is a stereo one, I believe. Yeah, but it's really good. And if you don't know him, you know who he influenced, who was a big fan, is Pete Townsend. And Pete Townsend covered, The Who covered songs that he would play, like Parchman Farm, The Seventh Son, Eyesight to the Blind, was written by Sonny Boy Williamson. I knew that, but I forgot. So that's the one song, I believe the one song on The Who's Tommy that Pete Townsend did not write, and he included it because it really fit in there. But this is a fantastic jazz piano vocal album. Highly recommended. Love this record. Sample it and buy it. A record you hope to find in 2022. And this is a record, this is the only jazz record that I have on my Discogs want list. And it doesn't show up very often on the Discogs jazz. And it's expensive, and it's a Music Matters Jazz. And I love the cover. I mean, I think when it does show up on Discogs, it's like over $500. Just ridiculous. Music Matters Jazz. There's like a 75th anniversary, and I don't like the sound of those records. And that is Happenings by Bobby Hutcherson, the vibe player. I used to see him occasionally in San Francisco. He lived in the Bay Area till the end of his life. Fantastic vibraphonist. Love his records. I want a copy of this. I wish Tone Poet would put it out, but they don't like to duplicate the Music Matters Jazz. At least I hope the Blue Note Classic series puts one out, but I don't think it's in the queue for this year or over the next year. An album not many talk about, but you love. And I've shown this before, but it's been a while. And this is Sergio Mendez, Brazil 77. Obviously, a lot of people know Brazil 66 with Sergio Mendez, very pop, Full on the Hill, upbeat pop stuff. This is very unique in the Sergio Mendez catalog. It's on A&M Records, if you can find the gold label one. This by far is the best sounding album. You know, do we need an audiophile version? I think this is an important album. It's Brazilian jazz with a little pop sensibilities, but it's so beautiful, so beautifully recorded. There's some vocals, very percussive. One of my favorite albums in my entire record collection. Sergio Mendez, Brazil 77, and it's called Primal Roots, which is a perfect name because when you listen to this record, it has that sort of primal percussive sound throughout it. So this is a record that, an album that not many people talk about, and I absolutely love this record. You need this record. I think it's a feel-good record without compromising, if that makes any sense, but I love this record. And new release I'm looking forward to in 2022, just really more of the Prestige reissues, Tone Poets. There's no any one title. And then lastly, Your House is on Fire. You have time to save one record, and obviously since this is a jazz thread, it has to be a jazz record. Which do you save? Well, you know, you grab a box set, right? I'm going with this wonderful, we just, 2 years ago celebrated the 100th birthday of Charlie Parker, my favorite jazz artist of all time. This is the Savoy recordings and Dial Studio recordings. This is a ton of great music by the great Charlie Parker. So 1944 to 1948, what a great period in bebop, Charlie Parker music. That's it. So thanks for watching. Links below to the original questions, to tunes from the Man Cave, and Mazzy loves you.